Ready, play.
Hello, everybody. I'm here with Gavin MacMillan, as it says in his bio there. He's from the Sports Science Lab, although, of course, most of you will be familiar with him, at least if you're a tennis nerd like myself, as somebody who's been working with Aryna Sabalenka. Now, actually, I was about to give away when. I'd like you to tell us, Gavin, when and where did you first come across Aryna?
Well, I mean, she's a professional tennis player, so I knew who she was like all along, and I had seen some of the struggles she was having, at Australia when she was literally serving underhand, but a colleague of mine named Dusan Vemek, who I've worked with for a number of years with different players, he knew her conditioning coach and Jason, and he had mentioned me to them in March at Indian Wells, and I actually met Jason briefly then, and then.
Which year is this, Gavin?
It was had to be 22.
Okay.
And he, she just wasn't open to it. She was like, I think, we'll figure it out. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And it was like, okay, well, see what happens, right? And I was in Fresno, where I am now, California. And it was a Thursday. She was playing in the Canadian Open in Toronto, lost to Goff, double faulted like 23 times or something. And the next thing I know, my phone rings, and it was Anton Dubrov calling and asking, is it possible for you to help us and stuff like that. And I just said, well, yeah, but I think it's better if I speak to her first. And, honestly, I just asked her if she was okay. I mean, I don't think people grasp like what it's like as an athlete to have to walk out into a stadium full of people, know you're not performing well, and you're still fighting your ass off, which is what I respected about her the most. And it's also how I knew this had nothing to do with being mental. Because if this were mental, like, you wouldn't even go out there anymore. It would just be like, this is a waste of time. But this girl just kept trying. And it's like embarrassing. You don't feel good about it. And she's like, nope, I'm going to just keep going. So, like, from a standpoint of the perseverance it takes to be an elite athlete, she had it. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see the physical gifts she brings to the table, even though she hates talking about these and doesn't think that she has talent per se. And I think it's laughable, but, it's an ongoing joke at this point because she's not, kind of talented. She's very talented. And but not doing things the right way, and so that was Thursday. I was actually supposed to fly back to South Africa on Saturday, and they asked me if I could come to Cincinnati, and I'm like, I don't know. And I like, give me a couple hours and I'll see if I can figure it out. And I called my wife and talked it over with her, and then called them back and said, yeah. And so I flew out there the next day, Saturday morning. We got to work, but it was the phone call when I, talked to her and just said, I understand this has got to be, a really difficult time. But the thing I can promise you, this isn't mental. And if anybody is telling you that, like, just get up and walk away. And I can prove it. Like, your motion is so technically flawed. Like, I don't know how you're getting them in at all. And it's just a testament to the fact that she's pretty gifted and finds a way. And, you can see what ends up happening with the way these motions are taught, by people how these athletes get into this position. And it's a difficult motion, like in a lot of aspects. First of all, you're tossing, and it's a moving object that you have to hit at a precise time to get any type of consistency to it. The conditions come into play, from the wind to the sun to everything else. And then, naturally, I don't think girls grow up throwing as much, so I think they learn it's a little bit more of a struggle to develop that overhand motion. Yeah, so then we got together, we started on it on Saturday, and She had to play Tuesday night, and she double faulted 5 times. I'm like, it's not
Okay.
mental. It's not mental.
Because that's a kind of a goal, right? To get it down. Obviously, I mean, I think you mentioned obviously against Coco where she did it 23 times, but if you're doing it over 2 or 3 sets, 5 times or less, that's kind of okay, right? We're in an okay zone there.
No.
Okay.
Where I disagree with you on that is when.
Okay.
So if you're talking about they happen sporadically over a 3-set match where it's not stress points, then yeah, I would totally agree with you. It doesn't really impact much. But if it's going to happen on break point where you have to make it and you can't, then that's a problem.
Okay.
Because this is a game of applied pressure, right? It's a sport that's determined by who can apply consistent pressure at the appropriate moment and not miss. And if you can't do that and you don't have the trust of it, and so this idea that these athletes are failing mentally, I couldn't disagree with something more. I've used the basketball analogy in the past a lot. You know, if you want somebody sitting on a free throw line with a game on line, do you want Shaq or do you want Steph Curry? And if it's Shaq, yeah, of course it's mental. He knows he sucks at it.
O'Neal has made 2. AC Green out now for the Lakers. Robert Horry in. That one was
up. It's very difficult to get back, and Kobe's game is based on speed, quickness, and slashing. So remember now,
contributor in the playoffs, especially the last round against Portland, comes in. And another
his arms up to the basket, and that's what you have to do. You have to make him shoot free throws.
Tabak was on the roster of the Rockets in the mid-90s, but he never played a minute.
Play game 1 and you realize we might have to do whatever we have to do. You see Shaq.
Steph Curry knows he's really good at it. He's put the work in. His mechanics are solid. He trusts it. And so in key moments, the only way people can execute things is that they trust what the work they've done. Then their mind calms down. If they know that it's not been working, the anxiety rises because the pressure of the moment reveals it. And it's that famous saying, right, that no athlete in the world rises to an occasion. They fall to whatever their level of preparation is. And in tennis, there's no clear example of it because it's such a difficult sport to master. There's 7 different mechanics minimum. No sport in the world requires that other than tennis. The athletic ability it requires, the speed, the endurance, the mental intelligence in terms of point playing. And I don't think anybody's giving her credit for it's not her serve's improved, yes, dramatically, but so is her forehand and so is everything else. And honestly, I think she's just getting started. If she keeps working on the way she's working, because like what she did in Dubai last year was significant in terms of her approach, and she was playing so well by the time she went to Australia. As a coach, you know that somebody's going to have to do something extraordinary to beat her, and that's all you can do, right? Because that's going to happen. Like you can prepare as best as you can, and then you run into Pete Sampras and he serves 70% in a slam final. Well, it doesn't matter what you prepared for. He's serving 125 in the corners. You're not getting opportunities. So what you're trying to do as a coach is to raise her game so that she knows that she wins and loses with what her 85% game is. And by that, it's like 85% of your power, spin, placement, what you know you can make under pressure. Those are what win slams. What she did against Navarro down 2-0 in the tiebreaker, that shows the work she's put in, because those next 7 points, yeah, she faltered, and then she got right back to work and trusted what she'd been doing and played unbelievable 7 points. And, you know, you look at the improvement of Navarro, who's a phenomenal athlete, has a great coach, is a really nice person. Like, they're doing all the right things, you know? And so it was an extraordinary challenge. You're in a stadium full of people that want an American to win. Obviously served for the match, didn't play a great game. Navarro played a little bit better. But these moments, you know, that are so stressful come and they reveal where you're at. So it just shows you that we have, you know, places to improve, which is what I'll continue to try to do, and so will Anton. Anyway, so I think, you know, from a coaching standpoint, what you're trying to do is set up a confidence in their abilities to execute shots under duress.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at the men's final, and I haven't been able to watch all of it back because I was flying, and like, the difference in Sinner's game that Cahill and his other coach have made in the last, you know, couple of years is dramatic. Not a little bit. They changed his serve, you know, to a pinpoint one, which is a little more difficult because there's more moving parts. But for him, they felt like that was, you know, working better.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fortunate now, just because we've had some success, that, you know, you can reach out to Darren and people and have conversations, and, you know, they're like me. They're trying to be the best they can at this. And he specifically possesses a lot of knowledge that's valuable to a lot of people, and he's open to sharing it. And this is such a difficult process. Anybody that doesn't think tennis is the hardest sport in the world to be a professional at is delusional. I mean, you know, comparing it biomechanically to golf is laughable. Golf doesn't have the physical demands even remotely. And there's really only about 40 or 50 people that'll make a living from it. The rest are just getting by. And even the top 50, you know, 50 to 20, it's not that, you know, it's not like these people are millionaires from it. They're not. So, yeah, I mean, most of all, like, with everything that's happened this year and the struggles she's had to face, and I'm just really proud of actually, because I don't think that she played necessarily her best, you know, Saturday, but she definitely fought her best. And when it really hit the fan, she really trusted what she's been doing. You know, the 4 games in a row, she never should have been in the position, I don't think, but I'm always looking at what we can do better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't look at, okay, we did that well, great, you know, let's cheer it on. It's just not how my brain works. And, like, so for me, I you know, you're up. I've got to do a better job, and Anton and I have to do a better job of making sure she understands what to do when she's leading and when she breaks, gets these advantages, sticks to certain patterns, and make sure she's armed that way. Anton Dubrov, that's her main coach she's had since, you know, 5 years or whatever.
He's a bit closer to sort of, he's obviously sat front of stage sort of thing. So in terms of messages during the match, and take Saturday's final, for example, you know, he's the one who'll be delivering those messages, I guess. Are you whispering? Are you whispering in his ear at all, or?
Yeah, of course. But listen, and I've learned this in several places, but the place I learned it the most was I've done a lot of work with Freddie Roach in boxing over the last whatever years. And I've been lucky this way. You know, you run into these people that are, you know, they're outliers to a standpoint of they're great at what they do. And when you watch him work a corner in a championship fight, or actually any fight, but where it really matters in these championship fights, and how calm he is, how simple he is, and he's, lets his fighter calm down, gets them breathing, and then with 20 seconds left in the time, he delivers a simple message of what he wants them to execute. And you don't speak. I've worked the corners with him tons of times. I don't talk. There has to be one voice. That's all an athlete can hear under this kind of stress. And it's a very difficult relationship to establish trust that what they're going to tell you is going to work. And obviously that voice has to be Anton in those moments. And obviously I give him my opinions, and then it's up to him what to decide to tell her in those moments. And he's done a great job with it. And when you see how other corners can work in boxing, and these guys are yelling and screaming at him, and you just go, wow. But Freddie was different. When he was a professional fighter, he never actually won a world title, but he was really close. He grew up in a fighting family. It's in his DNA. But he also, when he stopped fighting because of his Parkinson's, he went and worked for a world-class trainer for years, learning and trying to be great at his craft. He just didn't assume because he was a great boxer that made him a great trainer. And there's no more dedicated coach in the world than that guy. And he's, to this day, no matter what he's facing, physically, health-wise, he's at his gym at 8 and he leaves at 8 at night. And he respects work ethic, same as me. Anyway, so it's where, you learn one of these things along the line that, you want to think you knew it already, but you probably didn't. And he was, I learned a lot watching him. And he was uncanny at figuring out like our opponent's weaknesses, knowing our fighter's strengths, and then how to execute at them. So, again, he's one of the best to ever do it. And he's one of the best coaches, period, in sports, not just boxing. So these messages, you learn it because we have such a small window like of openings of where you can try to communicate these things, where to execute them. Everybody forgets in this process. She's been doing all this, making all these changes, and still trying to compete. Imagine you're taking a world-class baseball pitcher who's having location problems, and you're going to change his motion 3 days before the World Series, and he's got to pitch twice. I mean, everybody will look at you like you're crazy. Yeah. But that's what she did. And, the first times where like we really had, like it was calmed down and like there wasn't this, real pressure was last year in Dubai, I think was the best example. And like she did a great job there. And I just urge her to continue because this girl, is great and can continue to be great. And she has when she's firing on all cylinders, and by that I mean hitting, heavy spin first serves that jump out of people's strike zones, hitting heavy ground strokes that jump out of people's strike zones. Don't go flat. It's too risky. There's little reward. And is working the point, because when she's doing that, she's so difficult. Where she can get in trouble is if she starts rushing and things like that and starts giving away these free points, and the girls can stay in it. And I think in her defense, it's a process of trying to understand, the shots she has now and then trust them in big moments. And she really did that. Like some of the drop shots she pulled off were unbelievable. And that's all credit to Anton. Like we started working on that before the French Open, like a lot more.
Yeah, I saw.
Anton was really putting that into the schedule a lot, like every day, and it paid big dividends, especially here. So she was playing really well again at the French. Like I thought her match against Navarro at the French was really solid. Served really big in some key moments, hit big ground strokes in key moments, trusted it, playing well, and then you get stomach virus the night before and up all night. Like she didn't sleep. She didn't, it's how she even played, I don't know, but. was really a downer just because she was playing well again. And then, we go to Germany to play the cross court warm up, and that was not a good situation and nothing to do with her fault. We showed up to play whatever that was, a quarter or semi, and at 9 to warm up, it's pouring rain. It rained for 3 hours. They let us on the court at 12 for 15 minutes. She played at 12:30, played 5 minutes, and had to pull out.
Yeah.
And hurt her shoulder, but in retrospect, it's a bummer to miss Wimbledon because she's obviously a threat there. But it also gave her time to fly back to the States, regroup. We had a good 2 weeks in Florida before we started the hard courts, and she still hadn't put things together. But the match against Samsonova in Cincinnati, that was definitely where she got it together. Because it was windy conditions. She served really well, really trusted, using a heavier spin first serve, served a super high percentage. We had a tough, opponent, obviously, in the semifinals, and Aryna played well, but, Iga didn't play that as well as she's capable of. And, but it was a big mental hurdle. And then she played great against Pegula in the finals, other than one service game, served 80+%. And if she's anywhere over 70, she's a nightmare because you're just getting so few looks, right? So, sorry, I guess I'm doing all the talking, man. But anyway,
Gavin, I want you to do the talk. And if I have a thought, I write it down. In fact, at this point, I'd like to mention the forehand that was documented during the tournament, where she was getting more forehand topspin speed than anyone else in the tournament, even Alcaraz, even Sinner and Novak. I think at least I've got it documented at 127 miles an hour, no, kilometers per hour, I should say, where 129, sorry, compared to Alcaraz at 127, Sinner 126, and Novak at 122. I mean, do these statistics shock us? Do they shock you?
No, not at all. So like in the women, first of all, they're hitting flatter. So what that statistic's a little deceiving because of it's not also showing the RPMs, so how much spins on it, and so it's not shocking. She's hitting flatter than Alcaraz. Alcaraz's ball is jumping at your ears, and when Aryna's hitting with, and we have a statistics guy that works with us, Shane, that does a really good job of tracking this because it shows statistically. When she's playing at 85% of her power with the right spin, I think it's, I don't know, 20, I don't want to quote him, but 2,300 RPMs or higher, that she's just dominating. So her opponents are winning, like, I think it's 35% of the points only. And in tennis, we need to be 55 and we're good. And so she's when she keeps the spin rate high, but with pace, then she's very difficult, and that goes for her serve, her forehand, and her backhand. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that the outright speed is higher, but I think you have to temper that a little bit with what are the RPMs on it, because the men are playing with so much more spin than most of the women are. And the physical demands of the men's matches now is just, in a Grand Slam, is nothing short of absurd. What it takes to beat these guys. If you're watching, the semifinals between TFO and Fritz, I mean, obviously the physical demands dramatically affected Fritz in the finals, I think. He won't admit that, I'm sure, but you have such a short window to recover from a 5-hour match at night in heat. It's difficult. So the whole point, from my standpoint, and also from, I'm sure Anton would tell you the same, is just trying to develop this game where we can continually apply pressure from our side to theirs and keep pushing them back cross court until we have clear openings and then go after it. And Aryna, when she's doing things correctly, off her first serve, the goal is to use your first serve to set up the +1 and end the point. That's our goal. It's not to hit an ace. If you hit an ace, great. But what I want is, if you're serving out wide to the ad side, I want it at 105 and jumping away. So it's out of our opponent's strike zone. If you hit an ace, great. If you don't, they're not coming back at you with something that attacked you. So now you can attack the next shot and the court's open. So if you're going with that mentality, it's taking that pressure off of just trying to slam an ace and then hope and pray your second serve stands up. And then the next, obvious thing is make sure your second serve isn't attackable. And I thought that both Navarro and Pegula did a good job of trying to attack it. She also wasn't hitting it as effectively early and then adjusted it and started trusting it a little bit more.
What changed, do you think, at that 5-3 moment in the final? I mean, you mentioned a little bit earlier. Did Jessica just drop down a little bit? Was there a pressure involved, or what was maybe Aryna doing differently from those last 4 games?
Well, first off, when she tried to serve at 3-1 and held, she made 4 errors, so she gave that game away. And then Pegula played a good game to hold, but nothing spectacular. But Pegula's game at 3-all, that one she played very well.
Okay.
She hit, and Aryna played okay. Maybe we get out of that game, maybe we don't if she's playing a little bit better. But Jessica hit some unbelievable winners, and to Arena's credit, she just turned around and kept going. And, what we tried to say is, look, you get down, just make sure you hold. We have to put the pressure back on them to close the set out. Plus, I would prefer to be serving first in a deciding set if we can have that opportunity. She played a very good hold game, got out of that, and then played a great game to get it back to 5-all. Well, now we're serving again. Your confidence is back. And remember, these things happen in increments, like in matches, right? Where it really shows, I think, what the greatness of people like Nadal and Novak, Federer through the years is that they get broken, but they just come right back to you and don't let it faze them. And so they're right back to work. And what she did is just switch back into that gear of, okay, if you're going to beat me, you're going to have to beat me playing well. And trusted the fact that she's done the work. And she's, you can't win at this level in any sport if the work hasn't put in to where you can trust the shots that you're trying to make in key moments. You just can't. And she really did that. She played 2 very good games from 5-all and the game to break, especially at 6-5, and it's nerve-wracking. Obviously, your match point up, but stayed down and really hit through her shots with spin and pace. And when she's doing that, all the pressure now is on your opponent to come up with something bigger. And if they do, okay, they do, but keep doing it. Because you're going to have to keep doing this for another hour. And we want to make sure you know that. And that's the point of all this. That's why Novak's so incredible at what he's done the last whatever number of years it is now, right? It's not that you don't have these moments where you're playing better. The opponent does. But if you can keep sending a message that you're not going anywhere, I'm going to keep this level at this point, something has to give. It's another lesson that, I learned through Freddie is that, so many of these boxers and they rush, they get over aggressive. And you have to trust what the plan is. Stop walking in there to try to knock him out. Walk down there. We have 12 rounds to beat him up. Use it, right? Use your jab. Keep hurting him. Break his body down. Get his legs down. If the opportunity comes to knock him out, great. But that's not what our goal is. Our goal is to win the fight. And the best example of that was when Miguel Cotto fought Sergio Martinez in Madison Square Garden. It's one of the best nights I've had in my career. And, Freddie had brought in this South African lefty boxer to imitate Martinez for 2 months. And what Freddie was really great at is he set a plan out 2 months and then he sticks to it. And so the guy Martinez would keep his front arm down and he would use it as a fake. And he really got Miguel to buy into every time that fake happened. I want you to attack, and Miguel has one of the best hooks in the world. And, use your jab, let it set up your hook. And even though HBO gave us like no chance to win, we were 20 pounds outweighed. And Miguel caught him in 30 seconds in the first round in the head. And once that happened, you know, his equilibrium was off. He dropped him twice more in the first round. My point to this story is Martinez didn't quit until the 9th. Miguel just kept doing it. He didn't get over aggressive. He didn't try to knock him out because this guy's a wounded lion. And if you walk into it, you can walk into a shot and be knocked out yourself. Just keep doing what you're doing. Sooner or later, you'll get him. And Miguel really did an unbelievable job of doing that. And again, like I've been lucky, you know, Miguel Cotto is one of the best clients I've ever had in my life. Best person. Like he's just, you know, he was an extraordinary person to work with, and I'm super thankful for it.
We talked about the physicality. We talked about it on the men's side as well, and the benefits that perhaps Aryna had inadvertently from that injury. That I actually saw her pick up. I was watching you guys practice, and then I saw that match. I think that in Berlin there was a situation with the rain, so I think you were having to play a quarterfinal and then potentially a semi-final. But that's when unfortunately the injury flared up. But what I want to get to is it's also something that Iga has highlighted, various other people have highlighted, that these breaks, Aryna also announced in Berlin that she wouldn't be playing the Olympics and all the rest of it. So my thoughts are we playing too much tennis on both the men's and the women's side? Would the product ultimately be better for all, including the viewers and the spectators, if maybe we played a bit less tennis? Or is that not something you concern yourself with too much, Gavin?
No, I 100% concern myself with it. I'm not the one in our team to make those decisions like Anton is. But I'll tell you this, like last year they upped the requirements. Like now she's got to play like these extra 500s. That's absurd.
It seems weird to me that you can.
So think about this. The people at the top of this, especially, they're playing more. Aryna and Jessica are the only two people that played 7 matches out of the entire tournament, outside of Sinner and Taylor. And so you're playing more. So now you're going to turn her around and tell her she's got to play this again this week. She's shot mentally, physically. She needs time to recover. She's got to turn around and go to China in 2 weeks. And if she doesn't, like it's affecting, you know, the year-end ranking, and you have to make these decisions now based on that, you know, like, and you have to decide, are we chasing the year-end ranking? I don't know. Like, that's not up to me. So yeah, it's a huge impact on it. They don't essentially, you know what our off season is? It's 3 weeks.
Yeah.
That's not an off season.
No.
And so the extension of these clay courts into 2-week events, you know, it's just too much. And I think the stress is showing. Look, I love the U.S. Open. I love going there. The people, the way that the whole event is organized is amazing. But Iga had a very tough loss in the quarterfinals against Jessica. Do we need to be showing her upset, you know, in a private moment in a warm-up area? No, I don't think we do. Trust me when I tell you this, as a team, we highly respect what she does. And last year they did the same thing to us when we lost. You know, that was infuriating. You know, these athletes they have no idea. When you look at the comments that come, it is so absolutely a joke. These people that have never been in these stressful, environments have any clue what it's like to walk out in front of 25,000 people, 2 million watching, fail, have to accept that, try to act with composure. These are kids. Everybody forgets that. And come on, man, give them a moment. Let them, if they need to blow off steam in a locker room by themselves, you're telling me we have to have a TV camera in there? I can't possibly disagree with this more. So, and it does a disservice. Like, what is it you think you're gaining from this, right? You're not gaining anything. Like, if you need to have that as your drama, like, you have a problem. So, anyway, I felt bad for her. I wish they hadn't done it. And so it all plays into this whole thing, right? Like, Why aren't they figuring out a better way to market these girls? That is not marketing.
No.
What that is actually showing that she's a human being. Well, I already know that. We don't need a reminder.
Yeah.
And she should be able to, be allowed to have her moment. And it's devastating. She wanted to win the tournament just as bad as we did. So last year, like after that, and Aryna held it together till she got to the locker room and doesn't think anybody's watching. You're telling me that's for someone else to see? It's not.
Yeah.
And anyway, I was really upset.
I think Australia is similar now. They have a lot of cameras everywhere. I don't know how it is for you guys and the players, whether there's like saying, do you walk into a room and you're like, okay, I know I'm being filmed?
I mean, we have to know when the mic's live in the box. I don't want what I'm telling Anton going public. And that's nobody's business. It's between me and him and whatever he decides to tell her. And yeah, so to your point, I think, it's too much. And instead of, I was disappointed, like at the tour finals last year, and you're trying to say like, oh, you're doing a good job and everything else. Like the video presentation, like that they're doing, like you have 4 different Grand Slam winners, right? All unique in their own way. I mean, you look at what Aryna pulled off in Australia. Tell the story. You look at what Iga repeated at the French. Tell the story. Vondrousova winning Wimbledon, which was a miracle. Tell the story. And then the same thing with Coco, as disappointing as that was for us.
Yeah.
It's a monumental moment for her.
Yeah.
Tell the story right. Start marketing, because if you don't have greatness outside of just one person, it doesn't work.
No.
Nobody buys, tickets to watch something that doesn't have drama. Where sports separates itself is that, it's like watching a movie the first time. You don't know how it's going to end. And so if we aren't marketing these women the right way, then how does the sport grow?
Sure.
How do you keep the viewers that you have? This is the 3rd most popular sport in the world, I think, or what it is. It doesn't have necessarily the 3rd greatest, viewership, and it doesn't bring the sponsorship money that golf does. Why?
No.
Ask the question, why?
I find that from my perspective, I'm a very, very small outfit, Gavin, but I have done a lot of events on the tour. Yeah. And I find that the people running the sport are not, I think there's a lot of self-preservation going on in terms of, I just want to keep my job. I want to make sure that that's okay. And newbies like me, maybe.
That's true on every level, man.
Yeah, I'm sure. But I'm saying to them, listen, I mean, I'm telling.
If you don't evolve, you die, right? Sports, where it defines itself is, right? You either produce or you get eliminated. That's what makes it very unique profession. There's a lot of professions you can skate by in and survive. This isn't one of them. And it is impossible to be at the elite of it. Absolutely impossible. And so I think you have to then approach it, to your point, that they're trying to just keep their job and survive. They have to thrive. And if you're not thriving, we have to get someone else. Why do you think the Tour Finals is in Riyadh now?
Of course,
Yeah. And everybody's trying to say it's a problem. Well, how's that a problem? Somebody else is trying to come up with a better solution, and they're going to. It's just the reality of what we're facing, right? So what I guess what I'm saying is, if you saw, properly what these girls go through to get where they're at, how do you not then have interest? Greater interest from that person's country, greater interest because they've overcome, like the adversity Aryna's overcome is enormous. And, I lost a parent young. At 15, my mom passed away. She lost her dad at 19. It's horrible. And so unless you've been through it, you don't know what that is. And it doesn't matter. Like, I was fortunate. My relationship with my mom was extraordinary. I don't know what hers was with her dad. It's your father. And now, how are you learning? Where do you learn the ways of the world? Who's guiding you? Who's the one that holds you accountable? And that's where, like, no matter what, like, you see the resilience that she's had. That's not normal. And I think that's actually what got her through these last couple matches, especially Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
She was pushed, and this year, instead of reacting to what the crowd was doing or anything else, she was backed into a corner, stiffened her back up, and just said, okay. And that's, I respect that a lot. So, I hope this one, she said it after, but she needs to be proud of this. Like, this was a really tough one to overcome, and to be able to do it in that stadium with that crowd and everything else. And I think that it's a different respect level for her next year coming back with the crowd. And I get it, I'm an American citizen. I get it. But at the end, nobody's going to come and watch anything unless, there's greatness. And they have a chance at this. Like, you look at the physical talents that are out there right now. I mean, Rybakina's ball striking is extraordinary. Great serve. Coco's athletic ability is absurd. Obviously Swiatek and the way she's played, the last few years, and of course Aryna, and the physical gifts that she has. And you just know, like with her, like if she keeps doing what she's doing and keeps improving things, and if you just keep that in your mindset, don't think about, okay, I know you want to win the tournament, so do I. But the only way we win it is to improve. And that's the only thing you can control. You can't control anything else. And the sport demands that you respond to the different adversity. The courts, the stadiums, the wind, the sun, the crowd, the opponents. The balls are different at every event. The people don't even get that.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're constantly having to find these adjustments. And it's who adjusts the quickest in key moments, right?
Your health as well, I guess. You might be.
The most obvious, right? And if you don't stay healthy, like, how are you going to compete in a sport that requires this kind of tough, physical demands? And then you're not even acknowledging what the stress of travel is.
Gavin, I would like to see the elite, or all the players, be in the best possible shape, having had a good practice, let's say a good off season, a good period during the year to have practices as well, where you can make improvements, not stressed, all in a good place. Of course, this is a utopian idea, but I think we're more likely to do that if the players are playing 8 tournaments than if they're playing 13 or 14.
Yeah, but then they're struggling with making a living. They're struggling with everything because the money isn't necessarily there.
Of course.
It's better now in that if you're in the top 90, whatever it is, 96, for sure you're in the slams. So that's, 350,000 you're guaranteed. So now you've got some security to it. Because they have to pay all their own expenses, pay their coaches, pay the travel, pay everything. And, basketball player doesn't have to do that.
No.
Right? They get paid by the team. And if you look at the other leagues, and the NBA, which for years wasn't doing well, and then they all of a sudden, you have Larry Bird, you have Magic Johnson, who set the stage basically for Michael Jordan. And it changed the future of what the NBA is today. And they figured out how to market that sport. The NFL is the same thing. The sport I love the most, hockey, which I grew up in, it's a sport where those guys, when the sport was young, they had other jobs. They didn't get paid enough. And obviously that's not where it is today. But you have to understand, like, where you are in the landscape. And if you're not generating dollars, this is one of the mistakes that get made in this argument about men and women's sports. Of course you want them paid the same, but it's entertainment, so that the money has to be produced. Otherwise there's no payment for anyone.
But I think it's there. It's just not being tapped into.
We 100% agree. So what I'm saying is they've got to figure out a way to try to market this in a better way and market what they're doing and what the product is. The product is the players. Like, in the NBA, your product is Steph Curry, LeBron James, and then you just keep going down the list.
Yeah.
And if you don't market these people, like, what are people paying to watch? The U.S. Open had record crowds, which was awesome. It's an extraordinary facility, and they're trying to upgrade it. And, you see that end of it, but it also profits $300 million or whatever it is. And where is that money going? What is it going to promote the sports? And that's not up to me. But for sure, in the tour level, I don't think that they're doing the job they need to be doing to market this.
Absolutely.
And it's hard. So you just hope that because these last two finals have had such great viewership, last year's and this year's, that okay, you're telling me you didn't sell that? You sold it. You sold it, and you got the dollars from it. It's how do you support these other events that the women are playing in? That's where it has to improve. Obviously the U.S. Open, I think, is doing a pretty good job of that, but you just want to see it, be what it should be. So if you've got multiple stars in this sport, which they do, figure out a way to sell it and market it. That can't be that hard. This is sports. Everybody loves sports.
I think if you gave me it for 12 months, I think I'd do a slightly better job, but that's my opinion. Gavin, just before you go, because I know I've had you for quite a while, you talked about stars, and I'm going to go back a little bit, because am I right in thinking that you and Monica Seles, did you work with her at all, or something happened?
So when I was still trying to play, Craig Carden, who was coaching Navratilova at the time, had me hired as a hitting partner for a little while, and it was after she was stabbed. So it was a difficult time for her, coming back. But yeah, it's funny you bring her name up, because she would absolutely drive these girls nuts if she were competing today. Monica was fearless, had a great return. The angles that she played at, nobody plays on tour like this. She could hit full out under pressure, key moments, unbelievable competitor. She won 8 slams before this event. She was 20 or whatever she was. Unbelievable tennis talent. And I learned a lot. Like, her dad was really great to me. He was good with, understanding how to coach a player and what to focus on. And he was very, shared his knowledge with, the stroke mechanics that he taught with me and stuff. I've always been obsessed with that stuff, because there's so many things that I sucked at, and my serve was terrible. And it always hurt me. And I had a really good return. I could break anybody, and athletically could run all day. But if you're not taught right and not taught how to hit the ball, how are you doing that when it matters? You can't. You're constantly searching for it. And one day you have it, and the next day you don't, and you don't know why. And all I've tried to do is figure out the why, and then be able to pass it on.
Did you know you were going to sort of go into coaching at that?
No,
or did it just happen? Or because I mean, some sportsmen, I hear soccer players talk about it, even in their 20s, they're already thinking about maybe becoming a coach, for example. But for you,
I think mine was an accident. I've been in most of my career has been spent in the conditioning side, so the strength and conditioning side. And early on, I knew that this whole weightlifting platform didn't work, and that it's one of the greatest lies told. It's responsible for this epidemic of soft tissue injuries that we have. It's easily provable. And I started seeking out, like, what were the best ways. I again was lucky to run into people that were trying to do the same. And ultimately you come across the Russian research that was done over like 25 years. That helped a lot. That was Yuri Verkhoshansky's work. And just showing, like, so in its simplistic, manner, it's the difference between understanding force and power. And force just being mass times acceleration. When your feet are in constant contact with the ground and just pushing an external object, well, that's just your ability of pure force. Where does that exist in tennis? Nowhere. The only time you're standing still is on the return, and then you still split step, so you're still using an elastic response. You could argue it on the serve, definitely. That would be you're pushing off and your feet are in constant contact. Once they're moving, it's all power, and that's tendon-based. So it's the ability of the muscle to stretch and contract elastically, and the energy is stored elastically in the tendons. And then we say, oh, they're effortless. Roger Federer. No, he trained that. So it's balance and posture and understanding, where the strength needs to come from. And tennis is dominated by lateral movement. So it's the strength in your hips, your low back, your obliques, your feet, which are essentially the cars on your tire, or the tires to your car.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care how much weight you can lift. It means nothing to me. And saying that a 1 rep max is going to improve a tennis player's existence is an absolute lie.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if the damage it does, the heavier you go, we're 60% water. Okay. And I'm putting 500 pounds on my back. Most of these athletes, if you looked at MRI scans and the disc bulges they have, you can't do that. And you can't take the risk. So how are you going to now train them for this? So that's where most of my career was. The mechanics of it in tennis specifically were because I failed. I started helping tennis players a long time ago. The first one on tour was Zack Fleishman. I think we went from 780 to 104 in 10 months. Okay. He was kind of a different animal, though, because he, had been as a junior in the U.S. Open semifinals. We joke about it to this day. Like, if I'd met him when he was 16, like that guy's mind, he knew how to win. And he just technically was so flawed on so many shots. Like it was trying to make up time, quickly. Brandon Nakashima, who's on tour now, I've hopped a lot on and off, over the years. He's a little bit different in terms of his learning ability is unlike anybody's you've ever seen. Savant almost. If he gets the right information, he's able to duplicate it quickly, it's just not that easy, and yet he can do that. And he's really got himself in a positive position now, back on tour. He had a bad year last year, and but he's a really great kid and has intangibles you just can't teach. The ability to stay calm in that. And it's back to Aryna. I mean, the intangibles for her, she needed the confidence in what she was trying to do for her intangibles to come out. And when people first, said, well, she's going through these emotional things, I'm like, yeah, I get it. Let's see what she does once she knows and can trust what she's doing. Then you're going to know what her mental abilities are. And you won't until then. It's not possible. So you're going to tell me that you can get somebody in front of, in the NFL's got to make a field goal in the last 4 seconds to win a Super Bowl, and they're 10 for 50 at doing it. Yeah, good luck.
Mm-hmm.
No, they haven't done the work. So, of course, the anxiety, you're going to have natural anxiety no matter what. What calms it is that, your mind knows that you can execute that skill because you've done it so many times and before you ever stepped out there. Then your mind calms down. And I'm not trying to eliminate like what, psychologist work can be done, but saying that you can get somebody to improve what they're doing on a tennis court just because they calm their mind, I do not agree with you. Not possible. You have to improve the skill. And if they're still struggling, then we can talk about that. And I think then there's a place for it. But if you just it's like saying you have some weekend golfer and you're going to, train him mentally to be a professional golfer, and that's going to hold up. The other example I could give you, maybe that'll make more sense, is, I grew up as a hockey player. It's not like you're not in fights all the time. I've trained multiple world championship fighters in my life. George St. Pierre, one of my favorite people. If I have to get into an octagon with George St. Pierre, it might last 8 seconds. The skill differences with different solar systems.
Yeah.
So, at the elite level of sports, it's your skills. And if these skills have been done, then yes, then the moment you trust them, they should work. It's really that simple.
Gavin, I think that's a perfect way to bring at least this episode to a close. Of course, there's a few more episodes and chapters in Sabalenka's career, not just this year, but in years to come. And I guess there's still a lot that all of you want to achieve, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, I said it after she won her first slam. I just hope she lets this sink in and keeps going. That this isn't, what's enough for each person, that's up to them.
Mm-hmm.
That's not up to me. Of course I want her to continue. Like if she can continue on the path she is, the rate she's improving when she's able to put time into this, she's one of the best ever to do it. And she's just, but the work it's going to take over the next 5 years to achieve that is enormous. You have to ask, somebody else has to ask that question. That's up to her. It's not up to me.
Sure.
And nobody can, Roger Federer's path was his. Novak's is his. Steffi Graf's was hers. Another female athlete on the tennis tour that would cause a lot of problems for girls today, because she's going to slice you to death, and then she's going to set the forehand up. She can outrun anybody. Class act, phenomenal champion. But to win 22 slams, like, anybody realize what that takes? That's a lot. And Serena, obviously, and all the work she did and the achievements that she's had. So that's a whole different level of greatness. And the work it takes is over a decade. And that's up to each person. That's not up to me or anyone else. And if Aryna decides that she wants to try to reach that levels, then do I think she can become one of the best ever? Absolutely. But that's a personal choice, and because it's a huge sacrifice. This is not a normal life. You're living in a hotel 10 months out of the year. You're by yourself. It's not that simple. Whatever people want to think this is of, they have this great life and everything, it's absolute hard work, and it's physical labor, and there's a ton of other things that go into it. Yes, if you make it, the rewards are significantly different than the average person. But outside of the top 40, they are really struggling to make it work. And we got to figure that out. Because there's no first round that anybody wants to watch if these players aren't good and they aren't there. So how do you have a product to sell? It's right back to the same question.
I have a few ideas, but that's for another show. Yeah. Gavin, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, it's great to meet you.
Yeah, you too. And I'm sure we'll cross paths on the tour. As I said, I was seeing you in Berlin. I was just a few meters away from you. And in fact, I think we'd even emailed that day, but you were busy at work.
No, and then we got hurt and it was a mess. So
yeah, I know. Yeah. That was a bad day, but as you said, some good things sort of inadvertently perhaps came of it. And we saw that on Saturday in particular. So Gavin, thanks for joining me, and we'll catch up again maybe somewhere else on the tour.
Thanks, man.
Cheers, Gavin. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.